think we can understand thinking by thinking about it. How can we understand something by itself? So if we want to understand thinking, we want to measure what it is. What is this process? What are thoughts? We can't do that by thinking about it because it's the same process. You need a different tool to analyze what thoughts are. And humanity doesn't have this tool to see what are thoughts. It can only use the same instrument it uses itself. So we think about thinking and we think we understand what thinking is. This is the root of the problem in understanding the thought process and what are thoughts. When we look at ourselves as human beings, we are driven by our emotions and our thoughts. Our body reacts and acts according to what it feels and thinks. And this is the process. And it's a normal process because this is what it knows. It's the same as activating our hands or legs. We have these tools, so we use them. We don't know anything else other than the process of thinking. There are people and religions and traditions who believe that you can stop the process of thinking and make way for something else. This quietness, this all nothingness, the consciousness is quiet, and it is. And so we have to tune down our thoughts and connect to this great silence, and in this state there will be no thoughts. What I can say from the place that I represent in my being or embody is that the thought process does not stop. It cannot stop, just as the human body of the character doesn't vanish into the thin air. Not the characteristics of it, not its voice, not the flesh. Nothing goes away. So thoughts doesn't go away. Simcha, the character, has a body. In this story, she's moving through time and space inside the body. This is the illusion of the body. And if there is an illusion of a body, of course, that the thinking process or the emotional process that is inside, that is not visible, but is a very important part of the character, will also remain. The only difference is the identification that is literally gone. Because the character, Simcha, doesn't identify, not with this body and not with the thinking process. So there are thoughts in this state, in the natural state, just as there is a body, there are thoughts. And they can be very similar to the thoughts that were before the shift or before this understanding came to be. But the thinking process is now identified as what it is. Part of the story, a tool that is used for the character to build its story and to react. And so the thoughts Simcha, the character, has in this state help her to manage her life, because she is living inside the reality and she has to react to many people and many things, and she has to plan things. But the main thing that is not happening in this process of thinking is the absolute sheer belief that humanity usually puts on thoughts. I mean that humanity believes that it is the body and it is its thoughts, and then that the thoughts that are in the mind comes from within the character and belongs to the character. And this is why the identification is so strong, because we believe the story and thoughts are a crucial part of it. Because they are so specific, how can our thoughts not be ours? But this is reality itself. Thoughts do not belong to you. They don't. We are all one. There is no separation. And in this oneness, there is one idea who expresses itself all the time. And inside this idea, it appears to be represented by shapes, the visual world, and thoughts. The not so visual world, but very alive in our lives. It has great importance in our lives. So even though it's invisible, the process of thinking, it's very strong. Yet, it is not ours. First, we must understand that we are not who we think we are. We are not the character that plays life, that goes through life. This is a representation and expression of this oneness through these two pairs of eyes, the pair of eyes that looks at the reality. So everything, including the outer shape and the inner shape, does not belong to the separate body. It's all connected, it's all one. And you can think, oh, how can my specific thoughts that react to everything that happens to me not be mine? How can it be that I am not the one who is doing this thinking? It's impossible. So it's also impossible to believe that matter doesn't exist, or that everything is a great big void or emptiness. These two are concepts that are very hard to understand. But if we play with ideas and try to understand the ultimate reality and the natural state, this is the state where the thought does not belong to the separate form. The thinking process can be so frustrating. Sometimes we overthink about things, and we do that, and we're getting trapped inside our thoughts. There can be one thought that is haunting us, and we can't get rid of it. This is also because of the identification. It's something that's related to control. And every time we think we are in control over our thinking and our thoughts, we lose. Just by messing with the thoughts. Don't mess with thoughts. Don't do that. If you want to break free from thinking and to understand what is this process, you cannot think about it, and you cannot try to meditate and stop that process. It is not natural to stop the process of thinking. Just like for me, people who are sitting in meditation and try to concentrate on their thoughts and stop them are just like people who will sit inside the body and concentrate and try to make the body vanish. It's the same. It cannot be done. And It needed to be done. You don't need to stop the process of thinking. Because it's not in your control. It's not yours. Resisting to the thinking process feeds the thinking process. It's so simple. Every thought you have and you try to control it or address it and fight with it reassures this thought. It gives it power. No matter if you're trying to get rid of this thought and you bring very good arguments to yourself why this thought is destructible, why this thinking is bad for you. So you have an argument, a little argument with yourself. Oh, this is a very bad thought. It's a destructive thought and it's bad for me. So I will think about that it is bad for me and I will try to be good to myself and stop this thought. And you will try to stop the thought, and eventually what you do is dance with these thoughts, live with these thoughts, and you connect. You are binding yourself to these thoughts, like you are tying yourself more and more. It's like a rope that you take and you tie yourself by thinking about your thoughts and by trying to control your thoughts. Meditation also is resistance. Resistance to the normal process of thinking. If the process of thinking was not normal, it wouldn't have been created. It wouldn't be there. Everything that is in our surroundings is meant to be here, has a function, is related to something. So, of course, that such an important process as thinking is not something you need to resist or like dismiss or try to get rid of it, because it is here. Try to see why. Why is it here? It has a role in your life. Thinking has a role, a crucial role in the development of humanity. And it brought us to this point, not for us to say that it's a useless process and we don't need it and we can connect to the great big silence by shutting our thoughts completely, and this will happen while we sit and tell ourselves to shut the hell up. But it can never happen. This great silence, the place that is not connected to thinking, does exist. And this is the natural state, and this is the state that I say is possible for anyone, and it is my state now. But inside it, thoughts can arise. The place that is quiet is always there. When this shift happened, something very interesting happened. The quietness, the oneness, the consciousness identified itself and became the thing, this thing. And it is quiet all the time. It is quiet, and yet it expresses itself as a human being, so it expresses itself through a body and a thought process. But the thought process is on this quietness, just like the body is on this quietness. The quietness is always there. It cannot be touched. And it identifies the thoughts and the body as what they are, the passing phenomena of expression that doesn't exist. So there is no identification with the thought process. It can arise, has no meaning, doesn't belong to someone, doesn't influence the quietness. Quietness does not mean the absence of thoughts. And the natural state does not mean the absence of thought and the thinking process. In the natural state, there is only this tool, there is only this place, and thoughts get into the place that they belong to as what they are. In this perception, thoughts are much like any other visible thing in this great field of illusory reality. It doesn't matter if Simcha sees a glass of water or she has a thought. It's the same expression of this oneness, and it's not real, equally not real. You can say, so this is a dead end. We can't resist the thoughts, we can't stop the thoughts. But yet you say that there is a place that is quiet. So how does it add up? Resisting thoughts or trying to stop them is not useful, and it's not connected to the natural state. What is connected to the natural state is acceptance and not non-judgment. Because if you look at your reality, it's there for a reason. This is the reason you created, and you should accept what you have created, including your thoughts. The best thing you can do about the process of thinking is accept it fully. Not argue with it. Every time you argue with the thinking process, you will lose. And you will think more and more and get trapped in this mechanism of thinking. So what does it mean, accepting your thoughts? Looking at what you think is also a process of thinking. It's also judging the thinking process when you look at your thoughts. So when thoughts arise in you, it just happens. This is what is happening. So the best thing you can think or say or do or react to, because I don't have the tool to give you, is just let it happen. Let the thought come. Let your thinking process happen naturally. This is what it wants to do. This is what it wants to express. If it's a nagging thought, an intrusive thought that you want to get rid of, the best thing you can do is to accept it, and not accept it just as like a process of healing. Like, oh, this is a bad thought for me, but I accept it because I want to be better than this thought, and I want to get rid of it, and I know that it is not a good thought, so I will accept this thought. This is also fighting with the thought. When you try to rationalize your mechanism, and when you try to cope with it in this way, when you try to address this thought by thinking, by analyzing what is happening and if it's good for you or not good for you. This thought is not good for me, I will think another. Or this thought is not good for me, I will accept it. Every time you react to this thought in a manner of thinking, you lose. Because the great big silence is the total acceptance of what is happening around you in this moment, including this thought. So if there is a thought and it is a bad thought, this is what happens. It has a reason. Something happened to you that made you think this thought. It was sent, or it is flying, hovering about like a butterfly in your consciousness in your field for a reason. It has a reason. It's not logical to ignore the reason or to dismiss the reason. You have to accept what is happening in your mind, not fight with it. And this is true liberation if you want to be free from your thoughts and the thinking process. It's not eliminating the thinking process, it's accepting the thinking process. This is what it is. This great silence is not connected to the thinking process or its absence, just as the body is not connected to it. Otherwise, there will be no body left after this shift. It's not logical to think that way. Thoughts has to stay. Accepting every thought we have may sound like a difficult task for us to do, and we wish that there would be another way of managing our thinking process. There has to be a way. We must understand that we cannot control or manage the thinking process. And the only logical thing to do is to surrender to the thinking process, accept the thinking process as what it is, as a part of this reality that in which we are perceived by ourselves as a separate form. If your thinking process is hell, it drives you nuts, you overthink, or you have crazy thoughts and everything, you cannot control it and it scares you, and you hang to every possibility that can help you manage these thoughts by replacing these thoughts with a better thinking process and saying that I will not think that, I will have a mantra or a sentence that I will repeat. If it helps you in this current moment, it is blessed, because I believe that as long as that you are trapped in the separate form, you should do anything that is in your power to help yourself to cope with this reality, because it's a very hard place to be. The unprotected, illusory reality, when you don't know the truth about what is surrounds you and about yourself. So you are in a weak spot and you need to protect yourself. So it's a very good thing that you try to help yourself and cope with the thinking process. But you should know that in the absolute reality, the only thing you can do and you should do is accept your thoughts and try to cut in the middle. You don't need a middleman. And now you play both roles of the thinker that tries to control the thinking process, that there is a split and there are two forces and they are pulling you and there is resistance and it's hard. And instead, just like the natural state, there is no mediator, there is no one that comments on anything, there is only the thing. And that is a great relief, freedom. Is cutting the middle mediator, is cutting it from the process. When there is a thinking process, there is only the thinking process. This is the thought that came into the mind of the separate form. This is it. This is how it looks like. Well, this is it. This oneness, this great consciousness sends butterflies of thoughts to you. They are not yours. They are circling around you. And sometimes they land. And this is the thought. This butterfly is the thoughts. And there are infinite butterflies around you. And when you will start to surrender to this process and accept this process of thinking, you will attract other kind of butterflies. into the thinking process. And you will heal your thinking process through your acceptance, not through thinking about it. Because now, when you think and you want to get rid of this thought, you attract the same kind of butterflies, the same kind of thoughts. They come. There are different kinds of butterflies in different colors, and they can also come and land in the place that is dedicated for the thoughts, and they can express themselves. But right now they can't, because you attract a certain kind of butterflies, because you don't understand the process of thinking. So, when these other kind of butterflies come to you, there will be a more developed thoughts, higher thoughts, and thoughts that will help you act in order to help yourself. If you have an intrusive thought that is troubling you and ruining your life, you will not be able to get rid of it unless you accept it, embrace it, and let it be. Just like Paul McCartney said, let it be. Let it be. Let the thought be. Let it express itself. Let it be what it is. How can you resist it? This is what is happening. What's the point of resisting what is happening? What's the point if I will scream at the sky, I don't like the sun? What is it doing there in the sky? It's so yellow and big. I don't want it to be there. I will fight it. No use. It is there. It appears to be there. So it has a reason, has a cause. I will accept the fact that there is a sun in the sky and see how I can use it for my own benefit and for the benefit of others, for my garden and for humanity itself. It's a good thing that we have sun. It's a good thing that we have the thinking process. And it has a meaning. It wants to help us express ourselves and build ourselves and build our characters. And it always wants us to develop. And thinking are meant to help us express and develop. It is a present that we gave ourselves. It's very funny to me to see how we treat this thinking process. What does it want to tell us? What are these thoughts saying? Even if they are bad thoughts, in the root of the thought there is something that wants to be expressed or be repaired or addressed. There is something there that is connected to our development as a separate form. So we should look at this thought, look at it, accept this thought, surrender to this thought, understand that if it came to us, it has a purpose. And then we'll see, if we'll do that, if you could manage to accept your thought and your thinking process, different butterflies will come. Higher, more evolved thoughts. Bigger butterflies. Colorful, beautiful butterflies that can't get near you now because you are so busy with everything that is around you and you believe is true. These thoughts are you, you should control them. This is reality. It is not. The thinking process, just like the apparent time that we see, that we perceive, or space or matter, does not exist in the ultimate reality. Yet, if it expresses itself now through the separate form, this is what is. this is what is, and the only thing we can do is accept it and embrace it and celebrate this present. It is an amazing present. Thinking is amazing. Imagination is amazing. Even if we take it to the wrong place, it's only an imagination. It doesn't happen. If we cause ourselves suffering because of our thoughts, it's also part of the process of our development as a separate form. It's also okay. The only thing we should do is understand that this is what is happening. This is the expression of this oneness. Accept it, acknowledge it. And I believe that if we do that, if we manage to accept it in the separate form, we will find that the thinking process becomes more light, more easy, that there is not so much weight on every thought. If you accept it, just accept it as it is, you take away all this importance, all this something is so crucial in the thoughts when you believe them and you fight them, and then acceptance makes everything so much easier and easy to live in this state of embracing your thinking process, embracing yourself in the separate form, in those thoughts, and knowing that they are not who you are. Thoughts are like butterflies flying around us, and you cannot, and you should not, try to control a butterfly.
Nothing good, nothing bad, nothing ventured, nothing gained, nothing stillborn or lost, nothing further than proof.